Great.
Hey, everybody.
So happy you could be here today. Welcome to Overwatch. And we're going to be talking about the art of Overwatch, evolving a legacy. So before we start, we'd like to introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm William Petras. You can call me Billy. I'm the art director on Overwatch. I love anything art direction, leadership, and also very much love world building as well. I was the art director on Vanilla Warcraft back in the day. And I've been at Blizzard for 15 years. And overall, I've been in the industry for 25 years.
Hey, everybody. I'm Arnold Tsang, and just like to apologize in advance because I'm coming off a cold, so my voice is kind of.
We forgive you, man. We forgive you.
I'm the assistant art director on Overwatch, and I focus a lot on character concept design and other art-related stuff. I started in the comic book industry as a comic book artist, working with Udon Comics. Did a lot of Street Fighter comics and stuff like that. And I started in the games industry as a concept artist on APB and Firefall, and worked with Billy on that one. And I've been at Blizzard now for 7 years, and I think we've been working together for like over 10 years now.
10, 12 years? We don't even remember.
That picture in the middle is like 12 years old.
Nice.
Some of our better days. So today, we wanted to talk about the art of Overwatch evolving a legacy. And what we mean by evolving a legacy is, Overwatch, at the time that it came out, was one of Blizzard's first universes in a long time. So we knew we had the legacy of Blizzard behind us, and we wanted to push that forward, but stay true at the same time. So we want to talk about how we did that. And to do that, we kind of have to start from the beginning and talk about a project called Project Titan.
Project Titan. So this was a very ambitious project at Blizzard. It was a project a lot of us have worked on, and it was canceled. Unfortunately, it was canceled. And obviously, many of us were really devastated by that. We really did hit a low point. A lot of us are thinking, are we going to have a chance to be part of this legacy of Blizzard? Are we going to have another chance to build something together in the future? And a small core group was there, and we were going to decide on different ideas for some other projects. And we looked at each other, and there was a resolve. We were extremely humbled by the cancellation, and we looked at ourselves, and we were very hungry to prove to ourselves and just not let our friends down that we really care about, that work there too. So we really looked hard, and we were extremely motivated over that course to really be focused on this next chance coming up.
Yeah, so the team was super hungry. I mean, we had a lot to prove. For a lot of people, Project Titan was their first game in the industry, and we just wanted to get out there and make something awesome. And the cancellation hit us hard, but like Billy said, the team was reduced to a smaller team, and we started to come up with new ideas, new projects. But it wasn't really until Jeff Kaplan, our game director, pitched this idea of this hero-based shooter that it really started to come together. And I still remember that day that he came over to our desk and said, he pitched the idea. And when I heard it, I just instantly knew that this was the game that I always wanted to make, that I just never knew until that point that he pitched the idea. And I feel like I speak for a lot of the team when I say that. The idea really resonated with a lot of the team members, and especially the art team. So as the concept team, we started to come up with imagery to kind of start to flesh out this world. What is this world of heroes? And here's an early sketch of an early lineup of what would eventually become the Overwatch heroes. I think a lot of them eventually changed a lot. But I still remember when, I think it was Jeremy Craig, one of our senior designers first pitched that idea of, hey, you know what, this is a game about heroes. It's not it's not just classes. These are characters with names and backstories, and there's going to be a variety of them. And some of the things that inspired us early on were like the Avengers, X-Men, Street Fighter for me personally, not only on the art level, but just on, a world about characters from all over the world and, the diversity in that. So we really tried to express that in the early art for Overwatch, and this was kind of the first final lineup that we did for Overwatch, and it really helped rally the team together behind this idea of the hero shooter. It's like you just want to play each of these heroes, and you want to know more about these heroes, what's their backstory, and there's one for everybody. So this really helped us kind of gather the team around the idea.
So what is going through our minds as this small art group is deciding what to do next? And we looked at each other and we're like, okay, well, there's probably two things at least that we're thinking about as a small art group. One, we have to be very clear on our visual targets. We have to have a really clear vision of what we're trying to do. Two, we absolutely love the concept work coming from Arnold, Tsang, and his group. We like that. And here's an example, and I believe this is the very first in-game shot that really depicts, when I say in-game, it's a concept depicting what it would be like to play Overwatch, by the very talented Tsang, the concept artist. Now this shows an early example of like, there's Leaping Torbjorn, by the way, but it really shows that bright world. It shows some of the heroes you might recognize a bit down there, Roadhog, and I believe that's Symmetra down there. But you can see this future world being developed, this sense of action, this really dynamic movement in this scene, and you can see very early where we're starting to align our ideas.
Yeah, just a quick shout out to Ben. He's one of the most talented artists I've ever worked with, and he's another artist that Bill and I have been working together for a long time. And he's the kind of guy that, he can do environments, he can do characters, he can do VFX, all kinds of different styles. And to have someone like that on your team early on to establish a vision was, super important. So shout outs to Ben.
Okay, now here's another example of a very early concept by Tsang also. You can see, obviously there's a little tracer up in the air up in there, Genji down in there. This is an example of like the first person perspective of the game. You can also see like the early kind of thoughts on the world itself, Temple of Anubis, obviously influenced by Cairo. You can sort of see the bright tone, the dynamic action going on. You can see it start to develop very early on. It's something we got really excited by. And also, this image particular by Mr. Peter Lee, very talented concept artist, does a lot of amazing work at Blizzard. This painting that he did of Cairo, which was heavily influential on the just look and feel of Overwatch. You can see that thriving city. You can see the futuristic pyramids in the background.
I like the tech camels. Those are my favorite
camel. Okay, for 3 years, we would promise to get the tech camel in there. It is not in there. We have to.
Could have been the payload, man.
I'll talk to Dion and the guys. We'll try to get that done. But this was heavily influential, and like if you go to our office, a lot of these paintings are just like on the wall, just a huge inspiration for us.
So the art team came together with all this awesome imagery, and we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So we were like, okay. Another thing we learned from Titan is we wanted to make a game that was true to Blizzard's core art values. So we kind of explored what Blizzard has done before to come up with some of what we feel like are Blizzard's core art values, something that's consistent with all of Blizzard's games. First one being readability, which is probably the most important art value for any game. I mean, games are about communication of ideas, and the art is that communication. So it has to be readable. exaggerated proportions, whether it's like the giant shoulder pads on the orcs, or the giant hulking silhouette of Diablo in the back, or the big Space Marine mech suits.
Yes.
It's all about exaggerated proportions. Deep stories. So with all of Blizzard's games, we always want the characters and the environments to reflect kind of the lore and all of the story that we have around these worlds. So we wanted that for Overwatch as well. The immersive world, whether it's Azeroth or the world of StarCraft, not the world of StarCraft, but we wanted Overwatch to be a world that you want to live in, a world that you want to fight for, a world you want to believe in. And lastly, we wanted that handcrafted feel. And what we mean by that is we want the evidence of the artists and their craftsmanship to show up with every paint stroke, every texture, every prop, or piece of architecture. And it's funny, this image actually up there is a painting by Wei Wang, one of our principal artists. And it's actually the cover of the Art of Blizzard book, which came out a couple years ago.
That is true. So, imagine, for our team, we really had to, we felt we had to really study the different games at Blizzard, the sort of the legacy, and really study it really hard. No matter what we were doing next, we had to really take a close look at it. And I remember at my little desk, at work, and I'm working, whatever. Arnold comes in to my little desk and he says, Billy, whatever we do, whatever art style we end up with, whatever game hopefully we do, it has to belong on the front cover of this. And he had the Art of Blizzard book, and he dropped it on my desk.
It was a lot thicker than that.
Yeah. And I looked at him like, oh man,
that's more dramatic than that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I was like, yes, I totally agree, and I think it's just something that's really been instilled in us. So I think sort of this image and this thought is still very powerful in our minds.
Yeah, and during that time, we actually had some early character designs, and we're like, hey, let's throw Torbjorn in there and see how he looks. And we're like, yeah, I don't know,
it works.
Maybe we have something here. So.
So we're, at Blizzard, we, obviously very lucky to work with Chris Metzen, Jeff Kaplan, some really wonderful folks that really work closely in a lot of these worlds at Blizzard. The StarCraft world, Blizzard's high-octane sci-fi western, World of Warcraft, all the work done on that. Blizzard's take on a very stylized fantasy, World of Dwarves, Magic, Tauren, and Diablo, that world, a world that's dark and gothic, that medieval struggle between good and evil. All of these worlds we were looking at, and I remember just having meetings and chatting with the team, and we were talking about, Blizzard spent a lot of time in these other worlds, a lot of times, and made games in this world. What would be the one place that we haven't gone yet? One of them, and it's planet Earth. It's Earth itself, and this idea originated on Titan, and on Overwatch, we fell in love with that idea. We were like, this is a very powerful kind of world to build. And so we really fell in love with that idea, and moving forward, that was one of the key things we wanted to develop.
So knowing, Blizzard's core art values and knowing the world that we wanted to build, the real Earth world, we kind of came up with a couple of art pillars that were true to Overwatch specifically. And the first one being diversity, and it's diversity in designs, in shapes, and colors, and silhouettes of the characters, but also we wanted to make players feel welcome and feel like there's a hero for all of them. And it's a game about heroes with different cultures from different places all across the world. We wanted that hopeful future, like Billy was talking about, that world you wanted to live in, the world you wanted to fight for, a world crafted by Chris Metzen and Bill Petras, a Bill Petras world. We wanted something really dynamic. So not only the proportions, we talked about exaggerated silhouette as one of the core Blizzard art values, and for us it meant dynamic, and not only in that exaggerated silhouette, but also in the animation, in the poses. And we're fortunate to have animators like Ryan Denniston, our lead animator, and also Jesse Davis, who's also an animator who's actually doing a talk later today that you guys should check out. We'll have more info at the end. And Dylan Jones, he's one of our tech artists, and together those guys really, and with the rest of the team, crafted this animation pipeline that allowed for these dynamic silhouettes, these dynamic animations and poses. And lastly, that handcrafted feel, like we mentioned as one of Blizzard's core art values. We just wanted every texture to have that touch of an artist. And it was our first time using physically based rendering, and we wanted something stylized out of it because we knew that this was something that is really good at making realistic textures and materials, but we wanted to have that handcrafted feel. So kind of applying those art pillars and guidelines, we kind of evolved that early lineup of Overwatch heroes into kind of what you see today. I mean, this is what we launched with the first 21 heroes, and since then we've added more. But it really embodies all of those art values. And wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the lineup of Overwatch and kind of what something that we thought of when we're thinking of evolving a legacy and bringing kind of Blizzard's core art values to the future. And that was kind of like, we can think of the Overwatch lineup in kind of two different buckets. And the first one is, it's not specifically only these characters, but classic archetypes that Blizzard fans and Blizzard players find very relatable. You got the big hulking guy with the big shoulder pads, exaggerated silhouette. You have the big dude with the meat hook, the femme fatale sniper with the blue skin, and you have the dwarven blacksmith.
Yes.
You gotta have the blacksmith in all your games. And the blacksmith, Torbjorn, he was so integral in not only kind of bridging that gap between classic Blizzard and Overwatch, but also in how he kind of helped develop our art style. He was actually, though he wasn't the first hero that made it into the game, that was Tracer, but artistically, we used Torbjorn as kind of our art visual target, and he was the first one we actually modeled in the game, and we did a lot of our R&D around Torbjorn. So, but what makes a Blizzard dwarf? Like why are dwarves so important to the Blizzard franchise? And it's that craftsmanship again. And from characters like Muradin, that super boxy silhouette with a giant beard, stubby hands and feet, and the blacksmith tools,
The braided beards.
yeah. Even Swan from StarCraft 2, he's that mechanic gearhead mentality. So we kind of looked at these characters and looked at this philosophy and kind of tried to make something like that. And this was an early concept of Torbjorn. He looks a little different from what he looks like today. We thought, let's make a dwarf, put some random blue Tron lines on him for some reason, give him a claw. It's just like a random claw at this point.
Claws are always welcome, yeah.
But he has a beard. I don't know.
Yeah.
He looks like a mechanic, right? I don't know. But we thought it was kind of cool. It's inspiring enough for us to start some R&D around. So Renaud Galland, our lead character artist, modeled him. And this is a paint over of that model that we used to kind of explore that texturing style. And again, we tried to get that handcrafted feel out there. And one of the ways we did that was we used these brushes that actually Bram Mueller is one of our environment artists crafted. And we use these all over the place. We use them on characters and environments and the architecture. And it's something that you'll still see today on all of these things in the game. And it was really important in defining that art style. That how do we, show grime on a character? What about weathering? What are the shapes and silhouettes of these nicks and kind of like smudges on the heroes? And it was really the set of brushes that kind of defined that. So Renaud took this 3D paint over and brought it to life. Realized that handcrafted texturing style. This is an early render from Marmoset, but we felt like it started to capture what we felt like the Overwatch art vision might be. So we got pretty excited. We're like, yeah, this is cool. And but again, we didn't want to get too ahead of ourselves. So, in the spirit of wanting to tap into that Blizzard legacy, and just being a dwarf, after all, who better to talk about dwarves than the master dwarf himself, Sam Didier,
Yes.
Better known as Samwise.
Sammy.
He's basically the original art director at Blizzard, and basically defined the legacy of the Blizzard art style. So we're like, okay, let's send this to Sammy, see what he thinks. And this is an actual quote from like the email that he sent back, and he's like, "Now, if you're willing to placate an old dwarf, even though Billy's an older dwarf than me,
Wait a minute.
could you go to Crazy World with me? Would you be willing to try? Get ready now." And I love Sammy. He's such an awesome guy to work with because he'll always take your idea and he'll plus it. And he actually talks like this in real life.
He does.
So he's just such a character to work with. And he gave us a lot of good feedback. So he basically challenged us on two main things. The first was, obviously, as you can see in the paint over, like, you guys aren't pushing the silhouette enough. Exaggerate that dwarven silhouette, that boxy overall shape, make the boots thicker, make everything just 10 times beefier. He's a dwarf. And break the silhouette with some of these the smokestacks on his back. But it was really this other thing that he brought out, which was you really want to keep your theme consistent. You want to have a very focused design. And you really want every element in your design to say something about the hero. We talk about deep stories. We want all the visual elements in our character designs, in our maps, to kind of reflect some of this lore. So with Torbjorn, it was like, what are these random blue Tron lines? So instead of these random kind of techie details, he was like, what if his belly was this furnace, he was like a living furnace, change those blue Tron lines, make him orange, make it like, he's just steaming with this like energy, this molten energy, and we had this like molten hammer, and he's like, that's a cool idea, but you just have this random claw doing nothing. What if that was his way of manipulating the molten steel, the molten slag, and have that all tie together? And this is like an early paint over we did after his feedback, but it really brought up Torbjorn together. It really kind of condensed those themes and made every visual element on him just consistent with the character that we wanted to make. So that was awesome feedback from Sammy. Again, Renaud took that final concept, and that's the final Torbjorn character that we see in the game today. So Torbjorn was super important in developing the art style of the characters for Overwatch. The second category of characters, aside from like those classic archetypes, are new heroes that are unique to Overwatch. Heroes that you might not see in other Blizzard games, like you wouldn't see Tracer in even StarCraft, or you see her in Heroes of the Storm now, which is awesome. Super honored for that. But these are new heroes that we have, like the Russian weightlifter with a laser gun. We have the Korean pro gamer, the Winston, the moon ape scientist.
Yes.
At the time, we were like, are you guys sure about this?
Yeah,
But
that sounds a little crazy.
yeah, the Chinese meteorologist with ice powers. So we really felt that it was a combination of those classic archetypes that not only are Blizzard players familiar with, but we have a cowboy in the game. So we have some classic archetypes, but mixed in with these new heroes, we felt like it was evolving that Blizzard legacy a little bit. So, and of course we had Tracer, one of the most important characters, if not the most important character in the Overwatch lineup, because not only does she push that legacy forward, but she embodies the spirit of Overwatch as a game, as a universe. She's a super powerful hero with inspiring abilities. Those abilities brought to life with our talented VFX team. Nick Eberly, our lead VFX artist, really made those abilities, made you believe that you could travel through time, super speed. Those are kind of fantasies that every kid has, everybody has when they talk about superheroes, and we really wanted this game to feel that way, and Tracer, again, really just embodied all of that. So it was a character that the team really rallied behind, and everybody was really excited. So again, she was the first character that actually made it into the game, and as soon as we played her, we were like, okay, this is awesome. But she also taught us a lot about the art style as well, and helped us develop our pipeline. You see the original concept on the left, and the early in-game model that we were working on very early in the process. And at the same time, cinematics, Blizzard Animation, they were working on the announcement cinematic that we premiered at BlizzCon, and it was our first time working together with that team. But they really showed us, like, hey, if you guys are, representing a new vision, if this is like a new art style, you guys have to be super meticulous. You guys have to be consistent, and everything has to be just right. So they actually picked out certain subtleties, like if you look at the cinematics model, like how they got the curves of her legs just right, and like even like the hair is like exactly like the concept. They brought that vision to life, and it really taught us, you know what? We have like super talented people at Blizzard, and it's so grateful. We feel so grateful to work with these talented artists, and without them, like we wouldn't have been able to bring this vision to life. So they taught us a lot about, hey, you know what? There's some subtleties in here. If this is what your art style is, you got to pay attention and make sure you capture all of that. So we kind of brought that back into the final in-game model, and we continue to collaborate with those guys. They teach us so much every day, and they really bring our characters to life. Also, characters like Winston, another character that very early on, again, like we were developing different heroes, and we didn't really know. We were like, hey, this is a new universe, but how far can we go? And then one day it was just like, hey, what about a gorilla from the moon? Maybe he's super smart.
Sounds good. Yeah. Like,
what? He's got a Tesla cannon.
Yeah.
But everybody liked it, and we're like, oh, okay, maybe we can have characters like this in Overwatch. And again, Winston is another one of those characters that really embodies the spirit of Overwatch. He's got that idealized vision of humanity, the potential of humanity, and he believes in humans, even though he's an ape, he's a gorilla, and he wasn't even born on Earth. He was born on the moon.
That is true.
So characters like this that embody the spirit of Overwatch really help push the lineup forward. And in the spirit of that, I know you guys were told to turn off your phone, so you guys probably don't know, but as soon as this talk started, we announced our newest hero, Orisa. So I wanted to show a little clip here. Yeah. So we'd like to introduce Orisa.
The world is a scary place. Even here, in Numbani, we needed something to protect us. Enter the OR-15 defense bots. They took the old Adina model from the Crisis and gave them a complete makeover. They kept us safe. For a while. I was at the airport when Doomfist attacked. Poor bots didn't stand a chance. Everyone else gave up on you, but I saw what you could be. So I rebuilt you, upgraded your programming, and gave you a heart.
New personality module installed. System rebooting. OR-15 online.
No, that's no good. Every great hero needs a real name. What about Orisa? I made you to be strong and brave. You still have a lot to learn. And you'll probably mess up sometimes. But I know you'll become the hero we need.
My name is Orisa. I will keep you safe. That is my primary function.
So Orisa, that was an awesome origin short by Vasily Zorin, Justin Tavra and his group over in story and franchise development. Orisa is our newest hero for Overwatch, and it's talking about evolving the legacy. We're constantly looking to evolve, the Overwatch hero lineup, and this is just the next step in that. Orisa is the awesome concept by Ben Zhang, one of our most talented concept artists. And Orisa is our newest hero. She's a tank, and she's she's our first hero from Numbani, one of our places in Overwatch, and she was originally she was created by Ify, her creator on the left, which you see on the left there. Ify is super smart from Numbani, and she got a genius grant from the Adawe organization to create anything she wanted. And she chose to recreate the OR-15, which was this line of defense robots that Numbani created to defend the city until they were all destroyed by everyone's favorite Doomfist. So the OR-15s were destroyed, but Ify still saw hope, and she still saw what the OR-15s could stand for. So she used her grant money, rebuilt the OR-15 into Orisa, and gave Orisa basically her heart and her new AI. And Orisa is a very new hero. She's like very new at being a hero, very new to the world. So she's almost like a new baby being born. She's still getting used to her abilities, still getting used to being a hero. But with Ify's optimism and her bravery and heroism and honor, she's going to be like, she's ready to be the newest hero in Overwatch. And if you want to learn more about Orisa, there's Michael Chu, our lead writer, is doing a talk tomorrow. So I'm sure he's going to talk more about her and her backstory. To talk a little bit more about her, go back. About her design, we were really inspired by, we really wanted to evolve the legacy of the heroes in Overwatch, and to do that, we looked at what we had. We knew we wanted to do a tank, and we had the big guy with the shoulder pads, we had the big dude with the hook, mech suit, and they were all cool, but we wanted something different. So this idea of a quadruped tank was really inspiring to us, and it was a huge challenge that the animators also were up to tackling. So some of that resonated with the idea of this African mech that we always wanted to do. Like you saw some early art there of some African-looking mechs, and it was something that we always wanted to do in Overwatch. And we felt like this quadrupedal idea with some of that animalistic inspirations, like African animals like rhinos and elephants. There's even a version of Orisa early on, which she was like this rhino mech, which was kind of cool. But we're really proud of how Orisa came out because she just has a lot of character, and she really evolves almost like that Omnic ecology. We talk a lot about the Omnics and the robots in the world of Overwatch, and so far we have Zenyatta, Billy's favorite, and Bastion, but we really wanted to show the potential and the kind of breadth that Omnics could have in the Overwatch universe, and we felt like Orisa really pushed that and really kind of just shed some light into what Omnics could be in Overwatch. So, and again, Orisa is one of those heroes that really embodies that spirit of heroism, and I think one of my favorite quotes that really sums all this up is from Dr. Winston from the Recall animated short, Winston's father. He said, "Never accept the world as it appears to be, dare to see it for what it could be." And I think that really encapsulates not only the approach we take to designing new heroes, but designing the world of Overwatch.
The world of Overwatch. Now, as a lot of the art team was working on the early heroes, the environment team was busy also. We were very interested and excited about the planet Earth as a world to build upon, and it was something that just very early on we felt was a fresh sort of perspective at Blizzard for us to work on. This was kind of a collection of some of the maps of Overwatch. You can see the variety, the sort of the exotic locations from around the world that really excited us, the distinct cultures and just the feeling of the world. As the Overwatch art team is creating these, very memorable heroes, where do they live? How do they, are they immersed in the world? What is the world like? So, just like Orisa today that Arnold was showing you, Numbani, where she's from, it's this very futuristic, scientific, hopeful city in Africa. And the team worked really closely together to really make sure that vision felt consistent between the heroes and the world and just the overall feel. It was really important very early on to have that bond between the heroes and the world itself. And also just looking back on sort of the legacy of Blizzard and trying to be part of it. I'm sure you all know Chris Metzen. He a huge part of that on the world building side. We miss you, man. Also working really closely with Jeff Kaplan, Aaron Keller, our assistant game designer. Like, just a lot of folks really invested in helping to build that world. Now, here's an example of Hanamura we have here, also done by the talented Ben Tsang. You can see it's sort of this fantasy version of the world that we like, and our extremely talented lead environmental artist, Dion Rogers, does frequent Kyoto, and the picture on the right was like from one of his trips there. And what really excited us too, and Dion said it best, it's literally, there's a location, Kyoto. Imagine it is part of history. It's something very old, but also in the same way, it's something new. And I think it's something about Overwatch that we really like to develop. So Hanamura was one of the earlier zones we did, and it's a place like for the world that wow, I want to go there someday, And I feel like that's a lot for the Overwatch world. We want to create these locations that really we connect with, want to explore and maybe live in, The other part of it too is on the world of Overwatch and literally the entire art style, just the use of color was really important. We wanted to identify with colors for heroes and the world, but you can see here the fantasy is maybe the cherry blossoms, that color that we wanted to sort of put in the back of your mind to remember. So here's a few world building legacy thoughts at Blizzard. And we talked a lot about it before, but we were really interested in just studying what Blizzard has done. What other teams where have they been in order to find out where we want to go, And here's another painting by Peter Lee. And this is an early version of Numbani. And this is actually one of the very first paintings of that city. It is a little different now, but we just literally saw this and we're like, okay, we need to make that. Okay, the world build legacy. For us, sense of place is really important on Blizzard games. For example, what makes a place in the world unique? What makes it memorable? Is there an attachment to it? And we always want to feel that. Like Hanamura, it's a place you want to visit. It has this ancient feel mixed with the future. What makes you connect with these places in the world? Dramatic lighting. This one's pretty obvious, but yeah, we want to create a world that is stunning, and the lighting shows off the heroes in the best place, and it really helps reinforce the mood and the feeling of the game. Storytelling. Very important, obviously, for our game. We had to think about how to tell stories in a game where the maps are fairly smaller. The action is much faster. How do we tell a story in the game? Is it you could see Winston's lab in Gibraltar. Oh, that's where the recall happened, or the epic fight in Hanamura with Genji and Hanzo. There's bits of storytelling just in the world if you take a close look. And another one is memorable vistas, the memorable sort of experience when you're just exploring through the world or playing through it, and you see the vast sort of world, and you can't really go there, but it sort of has this majestic feel, and it creates a world that's much larger than what we can actually make. So it kind of creates this illusion of this grand world to explore. So let's take a look at a few of these and how we were thinking about applying them to Overwatch. And here we have Eichenwald. Now this is a map a little later, and it takes place in Germany, near the Black Forest. What makes this location unique? Arnold talks a lot about the heroes and the variations and making sure the heroes are unique. Well, for the world, it's the same way. The same principles apply here as well. We definitely want to create something that's very unique. It's obviously stylized. We want to create a fantasy. A castle. That sounds great. I remember Bram Mueller's actually early in the development's like, I want to make a castle map, and we're all like, that sounds really cool. Okay, we're gonna find a way to do that. And then we're like, wait a minute, this would be perfect for Bram's castle map. We could do this totally. Like we literally kind of were like, oh, this works pretty good.
Yeah, Billy was like, but I want to make a forest map.
Oh yeah, right. Well, that's part of it too. It's totally true. Because the other part of it too is we wanted to have actually something that's very organic in the world too. So I think those things kind of mix together. But sense of place is very important. Just the attachment to players and how you relate to it. Is it special? Is it something memorable? Dramatic lighting. So in this world also, we were very cautious of just how lighting reflects in the world. I think obviously here you have this inside of the castle, there's Baldric, and his heroic last stand is there, and there's a shaft of light hitting him. And you know, even though when you're playing the game at this point, you're probably too concerned with either winning or trying to make a comeback, he's there. He's really there. And if you obviously look around too in the locations, you could see there's a remnant of a battle here. There's people that once lived here that had to flee because of this Omnic, this robot attack on this town. And you can see up in the corner right there, that's how people lived. They had a bar. They enjoyed their food. You know, Reinhardt scrawled his name on the table in there. Like, it's a world that people lived in. I want to give a special shout out to the environmental team. Early on, very much, I talked about Bram Mueller's wonderful, talented environment modeler. Philip Kolestov, very talented as well. Working with Dion Rogers. Just amazing to work with these folks. Memorable vistas. So this one's pretty interesting. Back in the day on Vanilla WoW, early on, there was some world building going on that was very inspirational for me personally. And it is, for the folks that remember, very early on Vanilla WoW, there was a location in the world by L1 Forest. We call it sort of the four zone inspiration. And you literally have Westfall, which is this golden coastal zone. And then you have L1 Forest, which is sort of green and thriving. And then you sort of adventure through, and then you come across Duskwood, and the mood starts to become a little more mysterious, and the fog rolls in, and then you roll up to Red Ridge. And then it clears up, and you go up to a higher elevation. And this is really important. I always look at this, talking to Chris Metzen and Jeff Kaplan. This is such an inspiration for building a world and just experiencing what it is like to just move through different distinct locations and the feelings, how they can kind of transform into different moods. So this was a pretty big inspiration for me personally. Now, how does that apply to Overwatch? Interestingly enough, very early on, you can see we had some of the zones here and their color palettes, and this is just a high-level inspirational palette. I'm sure if you guys actually did your research, it's probably a little different than this, but the idea is Temple of Anubis, the desert map, for a lot of folks, that was our first map that we worked on. We wanted it to be a very gold, a very bright map, sort of the sense of adventure. So just imagine like, okay, we want this adventure type map, but we want it to be like golden, okay? And then Hanamura, which I talked about a little earlier, we want it to be bright and memorable, a bit historic, and we want it to have sort of like this history, and it could be in some ways kind of sad. So we wanted to have this like cherry blossom, sort of cherry color accent on the map. And then there's King's Row, which is based off of London. Tracer, any Tracer fans? Yeah. It's sort of this, we wanted to do a night version, and we wanted it to be kind of mysterious and cool, but we didn't want it to be too dark. So imagine that's like a very kind of like cyan blue color. And then finally, I mean, Arnold mentioned this earlier, but we were like, we need a green map. We need the color green somewhere in the game. Where are we gonna put that in? So Dion Rogers, our lead environmental artist, is like, Billy, I can get you that. We'll do it on Iconwald. We'll have overgrown moss and everything all over. I'm like, yeah, I love it. So imagine Iconwald, there's our color key of green. So we're consciously thinking of this tapestry of color as you play this game. It's just something behind the scenes. We're always looking at the color patterns. I remember some of the stuff you're doing too, Arn, where like you'll color key the heroes, you know what I mean? Like here's a color palette. And so we'll work like a Connect 4 thing with color throughout the whole game and kind of figure out where our best kind of spectrum of color lies. Sorry about that, I didn't realize you were drinking the water when I...
Colors are awesome. Yeah.
Color, okay. All right, okay. So, storytelling. I was talking about this a little earlier. What's the best way to tell story in our game? Obviously, for the fast action of the game and how fast the game's played, we're gonna build things into the game that you could experience if you take a look at pretty closely. Here's an example of Efi from the Nubani terminal, which Arnold was showing you earlier, right next to the destroyed OR-15 model. This is done by the very talented Vasily Zorin, a wonderful concept artist from Creative Dev, and also working with Michael Chu, our lead writer, very closely on these story elements to get him back in the game. Now here's an example of how storytelling works through different groups that work on Overwatch. So here you have a shot of King's Row from the game. So this is it from the game, and there's going to be a story that's going to be happening here. So how does that transcend to the animated shorts? So the first step is, well, we obviously want it to feel like Overwatch. We want it to have that same spirit. So the animated short team used the same geo. They grabbed the same geo. They did take some small liberties. They probably made some really good changes. We should probably go back and adjust. Yeah. And here you go from the slide from King's Row from the animated short, Alive, directed by Jeremiah Johnson. But you can see they took it, they modified it, the animated short team. Looks like they definitely added some more dramatic lighting in there. But you can see how at Blizzard on the Overwatch team, we really pay attention to working with these other groups, learning from them. Arnold mentioned it earlier, but we learned a lot. We learned a lot from these other teams at Blizzard, and we were so humbled by the experience of that last project of Titan and moving on to at that time we were like, this game called Overwatch, I hope we can do this. It really helped instill us like how important it is to really take critical feedback and really look at your work very hard and really be open to it. Now this next shot's pretty interesting too. You can see Mundata, the statue on the far right from King's Row. A lot of times you're playing the game like, oh, what is that statue? That's a golden statue. Who is that? And so later, after the Alive animated short was done, in the upper left there, you can see Mundata. We actually went back in the game and retold sort of that moment in the game. So we went back and reversed engineered like this little homage to Mandata in the game by the theater. It's like his picture and candles. So the environment team worked really hard to organically tell the stories in Overwatch and come back to the world, and you can see the moments where these critical things happen in the game. Okay, so our first map on Overwatch. So, imagine very early on, Torbjorn's being created. We're deciding like, well, this is interesting. What map should we make? We knew a couple things. We knew no matter what we did, really, we wanted to have very strong dramatic lighting to showcase these heroes. We needed a location to basically say like, this is the hero. Can you clearly see it? Is it reading correctly? We wanted it to be very bright. And we also wanted it to be exotic and the sense of adventure. And I think also too, Bram probably wanted a pyramid map. Probably, yeah, he probably wanted it.
Bram got one.
Yeah, he probably wanted that too. Okay, so Temple of Anubis. So we're like, well, a desert would be great. The great, strong, dramatic lighting of a desert, the clear reed, the golden sand, the sense of adventure. That sounds great. And then we started looking at some of the other Blizzard games and what they've done with desert. And literally, there's a lot of deserts. Diablo, some wonderful deserts. World of Warcraft, Orgrimmar, Heroes of the Storm, StarCraft. We're looking at it, we're like, okay, this could be a really good, relatable location for folks to really understand. Desert, that sounds really good. So for us, the next step is sort of visualizing what that would be. And I think a lot of times you'll notice a lot of concept work. There's even more, I mean, there's a lot. You guys, there is a tremendous amount of thought behind it. And I think for us early on, you'll see a lot of paint-overs, concepts, a lot of just really, a lot of studying going on for us internally. And here's another example of Temple of Anubis in the upper left by Peter Lee. This is an early version of Temple of Anubis. This is like a thriving marketplace. There's that tech pyramid that always keeps showing up.
Those are real camels, though. Those aren't tech camels.
Are those real camels in there? Oh, okay, we switched it up. But you can see the world starting to flush out. In the other painting to the far right, you can see some of that dramatic lighting we're always thinking about. And I think part of it too is like, the fantasy of the world, and we always thought it was cool, like this shopping bazaar, like filled with brass and all these exotic kind of products and everything. And we thought that was really cool. I think our spin on it a bit was like, well, we want to sell like Omnics and robots in the bazaar. That would be cool. So it's something that we're constantly thinking about. Here we have some early concepts too. I want to give a shout out to Nate Bowden here. He was really instrumental in getting a lot of the prop work, environmental props, vehicles done. Tremendous effort. You can see here in the upper left, another in-game shot by Ben Tsang. The game looks different, right? I mean, it's not exactly there, but you can see we're moving along this same path of the game and the bright feeling. To the far right, there is an early version of a sand vehicle, of a spawn room. There's probably a whole GDC talk on spawn rooms and everything. Well, yeah. Very, very interesting to make. In the bottom left is like a paint over of a gate in the Temple of Anubis. And then speaking of that like robot bazaar idea, that bottom image down there, that was an idea for some of the robots that we were trying to put in there, but we actually didn't use those, but I just thought I would show that to you. You have to tell the Zenyatta story here.
There's no. Okay, so the concept we never used for the robots on the bottom right is actually the first concept of Zenyatta. We ended up using it later on when we were like, hey, let's make a cybermonk, and like, oh, this looks cool, and then.
I thought it was cool because
that's a crappy story, man.
I thought it was cool because as we're doing the presentation,
Arnold's favorite is Zenyatta.
Yeah, but we were making the presentation. Arnold's like, oh, that was the the first inspiration for a lot of the tech, and I totally didn't know that. I was like, really?
I forgot until I saw
Yeah. Okay. So early on too, we talk about like clear vision and what we're going to do. This is an early layout map by Aaron Keller. He is the assistant art director on the project. And this is his early version, and a lot of it's changed, but I thought it was really interesting to see just the layout of the world. This is Temple of Anubis. I think originally Attacker's spawn was down on this boat, on a river in the Nile, and then you do adventure through the city. And then, even though that changed a lot, I think the Attacker spawn on a boat in the middle of the Nile was pretty difficult. So we're like, well, we'll try a sand vehicle instead. But you can see you end up in the temple area at the end. But I thought it was just pretty interesting to show very early, like, how meticulous the vision was and trying to show people what we were trying to do. Okay, so let's take a little bit look at some of the in-game work by the environmental group. Like I was saying earlier, Deon Rogers and the group very early on started their in-game blockouts. We weren't really too concerned, just trying to get the space reading right. The next shot was an early paint over, obviously more detail in there. There's our good friend Torbjorn appearing down there. And it's pretty interesting, when Arnold was talking about Torbjorn and how important he was. Torbjorn was very important for the game on the art side, very much so because he was our test case. Whatever Torbjorn, what he felt like, his stylization, like his character had to fit into the world. So you'll see him appearing in a lot of the early images, and we were really careful to make sure the level of exaggeration was correct. Does the world feel cohesive? Is the world a little too much detailed? Should we pull it back? Should we let the hero just be the main focus? So we were constantly evaluating Torbjorn along the way too. And this is done by Ben Tsang again. And here you have, like, we'll say the final paint over, although we probably did more after this, but you can see the dramatic lighting coming in, the atmosphere. We really wanted to capture this sense of the world. This was done by Ben Tsang also. And here's an interesting bit of trivia for you. Torbjorn, the dwarf, was named after Torbjorn Malmer, our lead technical artist. So he's actually on the team, and I think we were talking to him like, oh, we'd love to name Torbjorn after you.
It made sense since he brought the art and technology together so well.
Yeah, totally.
Seemed like a fitting name.
Totally.
Homage.
And I think for Torbjorn Malmer too, just amazing how much he really helped us on the lighting and the atmosphere of the world. So just another in-game visual target here. I'm going to speed up a little bit because we're running a little short on time. Here's an in-game kind of visual target video for a lot of the teams that work with us, cinematics and everyone. Learned a lot from them. And also I think for us, one of the things about Overwatch that we really wanted to learn about is how we work with other teams and how we can learn together from team members from all over the world.
Yeah, so that's why diversity is one of our key art style pillars, not only in the characters, but in the environments. Also that hopeful future, the world you want to live in, the world you want to fight for. Dynamic, we wanted the silhouettes to be dynamic, the characters, their animations and poses, and all their designs. And that handcrafted feel, again, we wanted all of the art in the game to reflect the artists that work on the Overwatch team.
And speaking of the Overwatch team and the artists, we have folks from all over the world helping out, really adding their incredible talent. And this is just one of the pictures of the team right here.
Thanks, team.
Thank you. Thanks, team. So thank you, everyone, for being here. It meant a lot to us to be here today. Also, as a reminder, please check out the animation pipeline of Overwatch by Jesse Davis from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock today. And then on Friday, Michael Chu, Thinking Globally, Building the Optimistic World of Overwatch.
And also, I feel bad because I didn't include in the slide, but Phil Orwig also has a talk later at 11:30, and he's going to talk about the kill cam. He's going to talk about the kill cam, the gameplay, and the highlights, and how the technology worked behind all that stuff.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, thank you. Okay. You know what? And I want to apologize. We ran a little late. We didn't have a whole lot of time for questions, but we're willing to take a few, if anyone has any.
Okay. May I have a question?
Hi. Yeah. Go ahead.
When you're talking about you want to create a new element, new person or new character. Like we want maybe Asian guy, or we want like a dwarf. That the initial thought could came from the art, or came from the producer, or came from the game designer, or all of them are possible.
I think you answered the question. It comes from all over, and it's different for every character. For instance, for Farah, Jeff Goodman, our principal designer, wanted a character that has a jetpack and a rocket launcher, so that started from design.
You mean principal designer?
Yeah, he's a game designer. He's responsible for basically almost all the heroes, the game design behind them.
Okay, there's one guy. He makes a plan for what kind of heroes we are mostly looks like.
Well, we have a team of very talented designers, but for Farah specifically, he had an idea for that hero, so that came from game design. Characters like Zarya or Mei came from art first, and then characters like Soldier 76 were like a marriage between art and story, because we had a lot of story to tell with him. So it's a mixture of everything.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi.
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 I've got a sort of follow-up question to that. I wanted to know if you did any kind of research behind choosing which culture and gender matched a hero. You seem to have a lot of diversity, so obviously some of it was just gut, we need some variety, but did you have any kind of more serious research behind the choices that you made?
Yeah, so when we design the heroes, we first start off with what makes the hero feel awesome, feel heroic, and we kind of we don't really start with we want to have a certain hero from a certain place and a certain culture, but we do want to have a variety of heroes. So we definitely do research towards that, but it's more about making the hero feel cohesive between story, art, and design first.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to keep taking questions until they kind of kick us out of here, so we'll see what happens. I can't hear you.
Can you tell us the story of taking some of the exaggeration from the female heroines?
From I'm sorry, the last part again?
Female characters.
From the female?
Female characters, yeah.
From the female, the level of exaggeration on the female characters.
Yeah, so characters like Zarya, for instance, was one that was really inspiring for us. I think I was watching the Olympics. It was 2012 maybe, and there was these Russian weightlifters, these female Russian weightlifters, and I looked at it and I was like, that's not really something that we see in games, and it just really inspired me. And that idea kind of came from the actual Russian female weightlifters. So that's one example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're gonna try and just get two more because I think are we okay on time? We can take okay.
Hey there. I'm a senior UI artist, and I just wanted to know what your approach was when it came to the UI. How did you include that as part of the art style? What was your approach to using effects to basically help sell the feedback rather than just doing it through numbers and
Yeah.
the usual
Are you talking about UI design in general? Yeah. Okay, so that's a great point. We actually really didn't cover it, but Jeremy Craig, Randall Dumont, the UI crew was instrumental in developing the look. We actually based a lot of the feel off the initial UI designs too by Randall Dumont. You guys will see it in game, but like the effects and everything, that all has to flow together. So we worked really closely with those groups.
Could you just elaborate on like how many iterations you went through, or was that evolving along with the art direction? Yeah.
Actually, it was. Like the two fellows I mentioned earlier, we're very closely. We basically sit in a big room together. But yes, it was closely evolving too. Yeah.
Hello, thank you for the amazing talk.
Cool.
I had a quick question in regards to environments, mostly to do with lighting. So a lot of the times I see some of the cinematic has really dramatic lighting, and then when playing in real time, you really get these muddy colors. Was there like a hard choice for you guys to do that percentage of lighting versus albedo color, a bit of on the technical side?
There was our lead technical artist, Torbjorn Malmer. That's something he really focuses on. But we went through a lot of iteration about how dramatic lighting can affect the game. And I can honestly say like some experiments didn't work, but we were always pretty cautious on it. And there's some examples on it, but to answer your question, yes, like we had to work pretty hard on that.
I guess just one more question. Was it really hard to get all the artists in sync to kind of figure out like the textures and the albedo color in that sense?
That's an interesting point. I think it's something that Dion Rogers, our lead environmental artist, is very passionate about with Torbjorn. But you are correct, it can be very challenging. I know exactly what you're saying. But yes, that was something we had to work for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks to everyone.
Here. Thank you.